Welcome. I'm Jessica Tietjen, and this is the Evolving to Exceptional podcast, where we talk about reaching peak performance in our workplaces, homes, and communities so that we can live our best life possible, an exceptional life. I want to welcome back our Evolving to Exceptional listeners. We have a fantastic new guest that's going to bring a really interesting perspective because she works in the pet industry. She works for Kennelwood Pet Resorts as their human resources director. And I'm really excited to have Melissa Paulitsch. I am going to hand it over to you, Melissa, to share just a little bit about yourself, your background, and why you do what you do, why it's important to you.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I am really excited for this conversation today and share a little bit about myself and Kennelwood. So a little bit about me. I am a lifelong animal lover. I always have had a pet in my life. And so the transition into the pet care industry was a really natural one for me. I've been with Kennelwood in this position for about 3 years now. My background is in retail operations and talent acquisition. So I've been in human resources for a little over 8 years now and have been with Kennelwood Pet Resorts for 3 of those years. And it just is a really great fit for me, being able to work not only around pets every day. I don't have the pleasure of actually getting to interact with the pets every day like my team does, but to be around like-minded animal lovers. And that is our mission every single day, is to provide the best care for the pets of the St. Louis community. Pets are such a big part of everybody's lives, our lives, right? And to be able to provide that, not only just in a service, but in a passion for what we do also. It is truly, our goal is to provide the best care in a one-stop shop for every pet owner in the St. Louis community. So that's a little bit about me. I transitioned out of retail into human resources by way of getting my master's degree in leadership and organizational development from St. Louis University. I come from a long line of Billikens. And so that was also a natural fit for me to get that degree. And that allowed me then to go into the human resource side of the business. But I have a great respect for retail managers out there because that is my background and that is a hard business to be in. And I find, and I often say, if you can handle being a retail manager, you can handle a lot of things being thrown at you in life and at work. So that's my background. I have 2 pets of my own. I would love to share a little bit about my pets too. That's naturally what I do when I have conversations with people because that is our business. I currently have a Great Dane named Moose. He is 5.5 years old. He is just the greatest joy in my life. In fact, he's snoozing at my feet right now. So if he does make an appearance, we'll see if that happens or not. And then I do have a cat. We are cat lovers here at Kennelwood. I have a cat at home named George. And we added them both during the pandemic, as so many people did. And they just really enrich and enhance our lives. And so that's a little bit about me.
I love it. And as we talked last time, I am anxiously hoping that we get a pet here soon. I'm very excited.
Yes.
And we are working towards it. I haven't had one. I lost my pet during the pandemic. So it's been, coming up on 5 years. So I'm ready for a new one. So I'm excited to get into this conversation a little bit with you. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the uniqueness of the pet industry and maybe try to weave in a little bit of some of the interesting comparisons between how we work with our pets and our animals and how we work with our people, and not in a degrading way, but in a way of actually there's a lot of synergies and a lot of similarities and I think a lot of interesting wisdom that can come from that. And I think one of the things we talked about previously was that you guys have a really fantastic culture, that the overall organization, people stay with you a very long time. You have a great kind of community recognition for the quality of service and care that you bring, which is important, right? Because our pets are part of our family. And so when we go to leave our pets with someone, that's really important to your customers, I imagine. Can you maybe tell us just a little bit about what are some of the unique challenges or aspects of being in the pet industry, and maybe particularly what you've seen more recently or in recent years as you've worked in this space and supported this space?
Yes, for sure. We do have a unique position in the pet care market. We've been in business for 51 years in the St. Louis community. And I share that, first of all, because we're pretty proud of it. And I only have 3 of those years here, right? But we still, to provide that care for the St. Louis community over 51 years, we take a lot of pride in that. But we also evolve and change as the needs of the market and the business evolve and change as well. So a couple of really important learnings that I had to take into account in this position are we are very labor driven. And so, but labor in a different way than I was used to in my retail background. Labor when you are taking care of people's pets. You have to find that correct balance of safety and managing those labor costs. And so that is really important to us because we have guidelines that we follow, a certain number of employees scheduled to take care of a certain number of pets. We follow those guidelines. The safety of the pets and our people are always above everything else for us, because why else would you want to leave your pet with somebody if it's not? And that comes directly from the top. And we really deliver that message through every single employee that works for us, because we want to continue to build on that safe and trusting reputation in the St. Louis area. That's why we do it. We really are, I say at our heart, we are a bunch of animal lovers running a 9-facility pet care business. And so to be able to provide that safe environment, not just if you are in the need for more of those, Moose is going to make an appearance. I'm so sorry. He's sneaking out from there. Yes. Okay. There's my Moose. So not only just if you are in the need of leaving your pet with us for boarding, but, if your pet needs some training, we train. We have the best trainers in the entire world, I like to say, in terms of training dogs. That way they can really enhance your life, because to have a well-trained dog is life-changing, in my opinion. We provide day camp service. And Moose, you want to say hi? He's very tired.
So cute.
We provide day camp services if you need to get your dog out of your house for some socialization with other dogs. We provide grooming. And so when I say we are that one-stop shop, everything really outside of retail and veterinary care, somebody can come into our facilities and get that. That takes a well-trained employee to be able to provide that. Something that I developed over my 3 years, and we implemented it about 2 years now. We've had this position. It is a position called a pet care professional. And the intention was to provide that career path for an employee coming in, if it's a recruiting and a retention, right? So coming in, if they have the experience, we wanted to provide an enhanced position at a higher rate of pay as well. It's not entry level. It is a full-time position. It does cross-train between our bathing our dogs, boarding, grooming, and day camp and customer service. So it's kind of that utility player that does everything, but it is also a development position too for somebody that wants to continue to grow and evolve in their pet care career. So that has been really useful in terms of providing that one person that can go into all of those different departments and help us to keep an eye on that labor. Labor's always has to be in any for-profit business mind, right? But from my perspective also, it is that development and engagement tool as well for folks that do want to grow with us.
I love that. And I think there's a couple interesting things I want to ask you about. I'm going to start with what you think has led to your success in keeping people as long as you've kept them. And also, what are some of the challenges that come with keeping people or having people stay with your organization for so long?
Now, my caveat is we are not going to be the place people stay forever, not for everybody, right? But we do have some really long-term tenured employees. I'm talking 20, 25, 35 years with us. Which is it's really unique, and it's It's pretty cool, actually. I don't know how else to say it, but something that there's a lot of pride that comes with working for this company. I think that's awesome. It's what attracted me to the company. We really pride ourselves on transparency. And so I was actually a client of Kennelwood with my Great Dane before the position became available. And so that's why it was a great fit for me, because that transparency is everything in pet care. And so that pride really comes out in every single thing that we do. And that really does lead to that great culture and the family environment almost that you want. I tell my team all the time, not every day is going to be a great day, but overall, I want you to come to work and be happy and fulfilled. And I don't want you to stay with us just because you feel some sort of obligation. I truly want you to make this a fulfilling job for you every single day. We get to work with pets, right? It's hard work. There's a lot of cleanup that has to happen. But to be able to really enhance the lives of those pets is really something special. And I want everybody that works for us to understand that and to appreciate that. And they do. And they take a lot of pride in that. And they grow up with these dogs and they see them through their entire life cycle. They know the dogs. They know the intricacies of the dogs. They can spot if something is wrong or something is off, probably a lot of times before the clients do. Not probably, I know for a fact a lot of times, maybe before the clients do. And that's why we do it. That's it. And that's why we get such long-term tenured employees as well. Not everybody stays with us their entire career, but it is really important that even if you're not going to be with us your entire life, and we're just maybe a part-time job to get you through school, or maybe you're working over the summer because you're a teacher, we want you to have the best employment experience you can have so that you can then reflect back on that experience in a really positive manner.
So when you think about the future for your organization and you think about what's really important to its success, what are the things, especially obviously from a people perspective, right? Like it's easy to answer whenever we're in business, like, well, more customers or more sales or whatever. But from a people perspective and a performance human resources perspective, what are some of the things that you see as really critically important for your organization and your people right now to be successful moving forward?
We talk a lot behind the scenes about technology. Technology is ever present in everything that we do in our lives, right? We're using it right now. And how do we will continue to be labor driven. We have not found that way for a robot to groom a dog yet, I guess. Who knows in the future, but or to walk a dog or so we need the people aspect. We do, right? But how can technology enhance what we do and make doing business with us easy for our clients and easy for our employees to come to work? And we're not throwing up any barriers to doing business with us. Another one of our service standards that we follow on, number one is safety, but we follow being accessible and easy to do business with for every single client that chooses to do business with us. And so technology can help both with the employee experience. We use a learning management platform that also helps us with communication, with some recognition. It's wonderful. But how can we continue to lean in as a smaller family-owned business to some of those technology advancements?
So you said something that really stuck out for me around using technology to groom pets or to train pets. And the reason that stuck out is because there's a lot of effort right now to try to use technology to develop and train humans. And as I was kind of just reflecting as you made that comment, an animal can't check in with an app. It can't read a book. It can't. And so there really is an element required of that human being, that human trainer to train them. And I think what's interesting is sometimes because as humans, we're able to take in information, we think that's the same as development. We think that's the same as training. And bringing in information doesn't necessarily translate into trained new ways of being, new ways of thinking, feeling, or behaving, right? Just because we read a book doesn't mean we integrate the things that we learn in it and it changes us in some way. And much of the learning and development space has been really heavily focused. Historically, they're making progress, right? But on that cognitive piece and that cognitive information piece. And so it's easy in that space to look at technology and go, well, we'll just assign more courses. We'll just give more guides. We'll just offer more reading. But when you think about it, much of our most meaningful learnings and lessons come through our human interactions, come through conversation and understanding of complex topics or understanding of our performance in a situation or all of those things. And so it really parallels in my mind what your trainers do and highlighting the importance of the people component around that human development and that relationship aspect that's really actually necessary for a lot of that neural wiring in our body to form those connections. And in its absence, it takes much longer, it's much harder, and it's much less likely to integrate fully when we're doing learning.
It's so true. And I reflect back on my training journey with my moose, right? My Great Dane. And it is, our trainers do train on a balanced approach where they use about 90% positive. But they do use some corrections too. And just like human beings, we need those corrections in life as well. And it's about consistency. And I do relate that a lot of times. You know, it is the consistency with our pets as well. We're the problem. We're often the problem, right? That we're not. It is hard to constantly show that consistency with our pets. It is also hard. You have to be very intentional to do that on a consistent, regular basis. And so it's so true. Follow through with me is my number one guiding force in everything with my employees. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to follow through. And even if it's communication with, you know, I don't have an answer right now, but hey, I'm thinking of it, or I need another partner to come in with me. Those open lines of communication are really important. And when I do drop something, because we're all human and we do sometimes, it's taking that responsibility for our actions and doing whatever it takes to be solution-based and move forward.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is when I think back to even watching like The Dog Whisperer, or, you know, some of those things, one of the things I learned in my own journey with raising dogs was the need for you to be in a state of regulation, right? When the owner is angry or frustrated, or animals in particular are very intuitive in that way, right? They pick up on the subtle cues, the nonverbals very quickly, which is why they're so useful in a variety of different settings for that, right? And we as human beings, we are capable of that also, but we have such a loud head brain with, you know, all these words and all this chatter that gets in the way of some of those subtle cues. But I think about really what's interesting is the importance of how we show up as humans to help other humans grow and develop, similarly to how we would show up with pets, right? To help them to learn how to behave in the ways that we're training them to behave. And I think, you know, when it comes to those types of conversations that are really going to be impactful, sometimes that's the missing element. It's not the what's said, it's the how it's said. It's the how it's delivered.
Yeah, it's so true. We actually just had a leadership development session yesterday with our managers, and the main topic of discussion was all around empowerment. And so not only empowerment from us as leaders to those folks that are out there managing our teams in our facilities, but empowerment all the way down, because we should have empowered employees. How do we get there? It's always a work in progress. And what kind of message do we give when somebody comes to one of our managers, has an issue, and how do we respond? What are those nonverbals? What are they? Yes, we say we're available, but maybe we respond in a way that they perceive we're too busy for them. And so you're absolutely right in putting yourself in that frame of mind of, I'm walking into work and I'm going to be that servant leader for my team every single day. And that's hard. It's hard to be consistent every day.
Well, and when you talk about empowerment, this is interesting, right? Because to be empowered, I have to feel safe.
Yes.
And to feel safe, I have to feel like I belong. I have to feel like I can trust. And I have to feel like and I don't mean in my head, right? I mean in my body, right? I have to feel like not activated. I have to feel like there's not a threat. And oftentimes messages can be being sent of threat with below the level of conscious awareness, below the communications. And so this is kind of fun to do because you're in the pet space, but I often talk about the neural networks. So we have neural networks and connections, neurons in our head. And for those that don't know, neurons are the things in our body that send messages that tell everything we do consciously and unconsciously. It tells our heart to beat, our lungs to breathe, my hands to move as I'm talking to you, right? Neurons are sending those messages. And we all know that we have neural networks in our head, but we also have neural networks in our heart and in our gut. You've probably heard of like gut brain or the little heart brain or something. Well, the gut in particular, there are about an equivalent number of neurons as what a cat and a dog have. Now, there's an argument as to which one, just like everybody has an argument, are cats smarter or dogs smarter? So there's like literally an empirical argument as to whether which one has the same level of neurons as humans. But somewhere in that vicinity is the level of neurons that we have in our gut brain. And in our heart intelligence, it's equivalent to like a lobster. And we know that lobsters are actually very affectionate. They decorate the places in which they live. They have relationships with other lobsters. And so it's really interesting, I think, when you can see or learn to recognize that we have these messages that come through that are as powerful, right? Like are as significant as what a whole pet might be capable of doing. And those messages can be triggered by things below our conscious awareness. And we've all probably had that happen, right? Where we have somebody communicate something and there's something inside that just doesn't feel right. And we don't know why it doesn't feel right, but it just doesn't feel right. And that is all of that unconscious awareness, that unconscious sense making that's coming through and being processed through those networks that are sending us communications below our level of cognitive conscious awareness.
Yeah. And yes, it's that gut feeling, right? And it is so interesting because the animals take those cues from us often.
Absolutely.
I know when my Great Dane, I say, likes to be anywhere that I am. People often ask, like, what does your Great Dane like to do? And I say, whatever I'm doing, as long as he's by my side, right? He's happy. But I can tell his behavior does change. And we related it yesterday with when do you truly feel empowered in your role? And I thought when it is, I verbalized this. I said, it is when you don't necessarily have a micromanager over you, but you have somebody available and they're not going to demean you if you come to them with something. They're not going to make you feel like, gosh, why don't you know this already? That is when true empowerment happens because you are able to, the person who leads the sessions used her teenagers as an example. That's when you want them to maybe go out and make some mistakes instead of waiting until their adulthood and then they don't have that safety net to fall back on.
Right.
This is what we want for our team. We are developing. We do have a younger demographic that works for us, and we want them to feel empowered and then go on in their career, whether it's with Kennelwood or not, and reflect back on, we all think back to our favorite manager, our favorite supervisor we've ever worked for. And we want to be that for them. Or if it's somebody that does choose to make a career with Kennelwood, we want that for them as well. So that's really important to us. And I think that people get that in pet care environments too. They can walk in and say, something in my gut is telling me that there's something going on here. And that's why that transparency is really important to us because we don't have anything to hide. We will show you anything that you want to see. And your dog can't go home and say, hey, I had a great time with my trainer today or a great time at day camp. So we will be their voice and we will do our best to tell you what their experience was.
Yeah, well, and I think what you're describing is that empowerment is a felt sense, right?
Yes.
You can't be told you're empowered. And I had leaders for a long time where we would have this conversation in the past where we would say, well, how come they don't feel empowered? We're telling them they're empowered. They're
Yep.
empowered to speak up. And the truth is, you can tell anybody anything till you're blue in the face. If they don't feel it, if they don't feel that what you're saying is genuine, or they don't feel safe enough, or the systems aren't built for them to be empowered, then they're not going to be, right? Like you can tell them all you want. And what's interesting is the gut intelligence is actually responsible for action taking, for mobilization, which would make sense, right? It's gonna say, oh, something's not safe. I got to run away, right? It's going to help to mobilize. But it can also get stuck where it won't allow us to take action. And empowerment is all about action. Empowerment's all about movement. And if I have fears, if I feel not safe, if I feel like there's a risk of failure and what could happen to me if I fail, then I'm not going to feel empowered. So those things you're talking about are so powerful for them, right? They're so impactful when you can create an environment like that, especially when people are young, where they can learn those patterns early that then they can build on over time. And so you're really setting them up for a tremendously successful career by providing them an opportunity to develop in a way that is really healthy and helpful to their long-term, lifelong performance.
That's the goal anyway. We're a work in progress, like most organizations are. But that truly is our goal in every single, from interview all the way through their entire employee experience with us. We want to make sure that they do feel that they are coming into a safe working environment, both physically and emotionally, in order to be their best self every single day, because that's the best way we can then provide that service to the pets.
So on the flip side of that, and I would argue that awareness and willingness to try is the first step. A lot of companies won't even try, right? They're just like, take it or leave it, or this is all we're going to do. So the fact that you're at least interested in meaningfully and intentionally changing is a huge step in the right direction. I'm curious though, what might prevent it? What might get in the way, or what are some of maybe the struggles or challenges you have as you're trying to develop the type of culture and experience for people that you want them to be able to have?
Just when when I worked in operations, it's time. It is just time for everybody. It is being able to run the business, be strategic, make the right people decisions, put processes into place, and roll out new technologies, new system changes. And at the same time as you're doing all of that, you're also saying, oh, but don't forget about taking care of your team and every single thing that you do. And so finding that balance. And that's when, some leaders really are heads and shoulders above others. And that's where you see them excel. And some need more help coming along with that. It is about creating that culture that all of those things are important. That's all how we run a business. And we would not be able to take care of the amount of pets that we are able to take care of without all of those things. We also need to take care of our team in every single thing that we do. And so finding the balance in that time is really the tricky part.
And so everybody always says it, right? You and I've talked about that. Everyone always says that time is a challenge, and we're perpetually in states. I did it to myself yesterday where I got to the end of the day and I wanted to finish something and there was just no more time. My kids were home. I had to stop, right? And so we're kind of constantly in this like little bit of a battle or struggle with time, just in the nature of the way we've kind of structured our work and our lives and our systems. What do you think is some of the biggest hurdles when you say having the time? Is it carving out the time? Is it how much time? What do you think of is the challenge in that space?
From a leadership perspective for me, it is being clear with my expectations. And so then are all the way through the entire organization, and not just myself, but my peers within this organization, everybody being clear with their expectations, because then are the people that are out there taking care of the pets have a better understanding of how do they prioritize their time?
Yeah.
Where do they put their energy? And not everything can be priority number one all the time, but making sure that we are very clear on this is coming, our communication, we have open communication. They can come to us with anything, and we're not going to give that, I'm too busy kind of reaction at any time, because they need the support. That's what we're here for. We are their support team to help them run the daily operations. And so to be very clear and intentional with our communication, and that way I'm not just bombarding compliance emails to them all day long. For example, in human resources, that can happen. And so to make sure that we are clear with what is the priority. There are some things that we have to be compliant on, of course, but then there are other things that are a little bit more, we have some more room that we can flex into or not, depending on the needs of the business as well. So clear expectations. That was a very long way to say clear expectations.
No, it's incredibly important. And, I think one of the things that's interesting is that when we are in states of survival, so when we're in and not even necessarily states of survival, but when our brain kind of has two modes. We call it task positive network. It's when we're getting things done, we're accomplishing things, and default mode network, which is when it kind of goes offline and it wanders around and it makes connections between things. It's one of the reasons why oftentimes the breakthrough idea comes to us in the shower or on a walk, right? Because we're not doing anything else. So our brain kind of relaxes, and that it makes connections between things. And I think what's interesting is that when people are in a survival state or in this focused state, it makes it more difficult to make some of those connections or to do some of that development and learning. And so even if you give someone the time, the way that they approach it, their mindset whilst doing it, the way that their body's operating while they're doing it, makes it less effective. And so one of the challenges, I think, that kind of even precipitates the time challenge is, how do we help people prepare or get equipped to navigate on a daily basis the challenges, their nervous system states, the way their body's operating, so that when it's time to do some growth and learning, which can be in small segments, it doesn't have to be hours long. In fact, a lot of my programs, I say watch 1 5-minute video a day, and that's it. Like do one thing, reflect on it, 15 minutes, you're done, right? Like, don't spend hours, but allow yourself little nuggets that your brain can kind of chew on and process and then build on over time. And I think that's part of the reframe of understanding how our bodies actually wire and develop and grow, and helping people to prepare for that growth in a way that they're really present for it, and it can really be impactful and meaningful versus feeling stressed by it, which is, of course, not going to help anything stick, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it goes back to human nature also. They're going to, as we do, you want to take care of that kind of low-hanging fruit, the tasks that are easy to check off of our checklist, instead of leading into whether it be, maybe a tough developmental conversation with an employee or some of those bigger issues that are going on. So helping them to develop those capabilities for sure. And yes, I completely resonate with those middle of the night aha moments, because you're absolutely right. That is when you are relaxed, and always having your phone close so you can take a note. Remember.
I can't tell you how many, almost all of the articles that I write, almost all of them have been written in the Notes app on my phone. I mean, all of a sudden the idea comes in while I'm in the middle of a walk. So I'm typing away while I walk, or I'm laying in bed at night, or I jump out of the shower, right? It's almost never do I do my best writing sitting at a keyboard, which is actually really frustrating because my fingers get tired. But also, it's the nature of it. And I do most of my learning that way too. I do most of my learning while walking or while moving around my house and folding laundry or things like that, because it's very hard to sit at a desk or at a location where you're normally in a state of getting things done, moving through your tasks, and instead shift into like a learning, receptive, reflective state. And that's the state we have to be in for that growth to happen, for those neural pathways to form.
Yeah, it's totally true. You can't force it on somebody. They have to take the initiative to do it, but you also have to give them that space, right? And yep, I completely agree with that.
Well, and it kind of gets into, and I know I told you this last time, but this kind of blew my mind when I first learned it around how we experience time is really the result of how our body's operating. So how we perceive it and experience it is the result of how stressed our body is. And so if our heart rate variability is in a high stress state, time feels one way. And if it's in a balanced, coherent state, it feels differently. And sometimes I compare it to when we're really present and we're really enjoying the moment, how things just kind of slow down and you're just in the moment and time's moving by more slowly and you can notice the details. And then there's other times where it's just going by so fast that you're overwhelmed. You're like, I have so much more to do. And so recognizing, and I've done this for myself over the years, if when I regulate myself and I bring myself back into balance and presence, I'm suddenly able to get more done in the same amount of time because I'm present, because my neural networks are online, because I'm using them effectively and I'm not burning that energy. And so often I'll shift from when I work with my clients from talking about things in terms of time to talking about them in terms of energy. And how do we recognize when we're in a high energy burn state, right? We're in a fight, flight,
Mhm.
freeze. We're burning energy because our body thinks we're trying to survive versus in a balanced, calm, coherent, and connected state where we can relate to other people, where we can learn and grow and expand, where we're not constantly scanning for threat or risk or what's in our environment. And that's particularly hard right now because there's a lot of threats and risks in the news and the information that's coming at us and just the geopolitical instability in the world in general that creates a sense of threat that makes it that much more difficult. So what I see more now, and I'm curious of your thoughts on this, is that more people are operating in that state and it's harder and harder to get back into a regulated state. Now, maybe that's not the case as much because your guys are around animals all day and they are going
Mhm.
to help regulate you as humans. Like we know this, right? People with pets are less depressed. Like
Mhm.
the animals sense when there's certain emotions and they can help to bring regulation to them. But curious of your thoughts on that.
Well, I think I know I brought up this example when we talked previously, but it's like walking into group play with dogs, right? If as a human, you do not present yourself as the leader of that group of dogs, one of the dogs is going to step in and do that. But then they look at you as the leader and say, oh, okay, cool. I can sit back and I can play and I don't have to worry about anything. I think that if we can create that same environment for our employees to come in and say, hey, I can fulfill this job of doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm getting feedback and they care about me and they're showing me radical candor, that's how you create it. That's how you I mean, we do. Like I said earlier, we get to work with animals. There's something really special about that. But it is hard work. We do have high expectations for our employees because we are taking care of such a big part of people's lives. That's really important. And people come to work for us because they're animal lovers. I say that's like the bare minimum. You can like dogs. You can think dogs are okay. Do you love dogs? Okay, great. You can. You're around a lot of dogs. So you really have to be a dog lover to come work for us. That I find those are the best fits for us, but they want to feel taken care of as well. They want to be able to come in and know their expectations and not have a lot of surprises thrown at them throughout the day, just like we do. And that's how we feel comfortable as well. And you can relate that to a dog's behavior. I can think about my moose right now, my Great Dane, and he wants direction from me. He's constantly looking to direction for me so that he doesn't have to worry about, am I doing the right things? Am I being bad? Am I being, and so we just have to have that leadership presence.
Well, in that clarity, I think what you're hitting on there is key, right? When the
Yep.
brain is clear, then it doesn't have to scan for risk or threat. It knows what it's supposed to do and how it's supposed to do it, and it can focus on the task rather than wondering if, it's meeting the expectation or what is the expectation. And so certainly one of the kind of foundational elements we talk about from a neuroscience perspective is a clear brain. When we provide clarity of expectation, it creates calmness for our brain. It reduces the stress of uncertainty and risk that come from not knowing what the expectation is. So sometimes people will say like, well, people should know what the expectation is or things like that. And I always come back with, yes, but if you're very clear with it and you guys agree to it together, they're going to be less stressed about it than if it's an assumption that they know. And that's another example of here you get some energy back, right? Your body isn't busy trying to figure out, is this really the expectation? Am I doing the right thing? Or am I missing the mark? It's not left wondering and wasting energy on that. It's just focused on doing the thing. And that's what we want people doing every day, right?
That's it. And then they can take that into their own personal life. And that is how you lead an exceptional life, right? That's it.
Absolutely.
That's it, right? Exceptional at work, exceptional in your personal life as well.
100%. It makes a difference everywhere. Yeah, I love that you said that. So I think you and I could go on forever. But I want to give you a chance to kind of give any final thoughts or insights that you have for our audience. I think, what's interesting as we've talked about this topic, particularly in your space, is the recognition of how we influence one another just as we influence our pets and our animal-centered relationships, right? And so when we recognize that relational component to everything we do, and we take into account in how we communicate, how we get things done, how we set expectations, we create an environment that is more conducive to learning and more conducive to positive performance and business outcomes. And so it's really a win-win for everybody if we can develop people to have these skill sets.
Yes, for sure. Relationship-based leadership is everything that I believe in, that I drive. It does nobody any good to go in and start a coaching conversation without even knowing the person's name. They don't know who you are. They don't know your expectations. So build those relationships. I tell my people all the time, you don't have to be best friends with everybody you work with, but know a little bit about them. That's what people want. That's important. And they need to know the expectations. They need to know that you care about them personally, right? And so doesn't drive everybody, but I can say like on a general basis, building those relationships is really important. Then people do feel both that empowerment, they feel that passion to come in. They can build better relationships with the pets that we take care of because they're just generally more comfortable in every single thing that they do. That's what we strive for every day.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for coming on and talking to us. I've loved this conversation, kind of comparing and looking at pet-based perspectives on people, which is just a fun way to think about performance and our cultures and how we cultivate those cultures that really propel people's performance in ways that create the exceptional lives and exceptional workplaces. So for all of our listeners, I just want to remind you to always keep evolving, keep growing, keep rewiring those neural pathways so that you can live your best life, an exceptional life. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will be back again next week with another episode. Thank you again, Melissa.
Thanks, Jessica.